Today we have the House Republican leader. By the way, for the last many decades, only 2 years could we ever say the House Speaker who's a Republican, but I'm sure, Jim, you're going to change that. Has served in this position for nearly 5 months. Our guest today is a proud graduate of Fenwick High School, John Marshall Law School. He and his lovely wife Celeste live in Western Springs and have 4 beautiful daughters. Glad you stopped, huh? Ladies and gentlemen, Jim Durkin.
Thanks, Paul. Always a pleasure to hear you. And, very serious. That's nice. It's good. But of course, thank you for acknowledging my wife who's here. And I have a table for our brothers in the back. And I don't know who came and who left, but thanks for coming, guys. We know how that works. But also, I know you acknowledged my colleagues, but I also just want to reemphasize that I'm really honored to have members of my caucus who've joined me today: Michael McCullough from the city of Chicago, John Cabello from Rockford, Patty Bellock of Hinsdale, who's our deputy leader, and also probably the most knowledgeable person on Medicaid in the state of Illinois, if not the nation. Patty, thank you for what you do. Also, another one of my caucus members, an outstanding member, Tom Morrison from the Palatine area. Tom, thanks again. Keith Wheeler, one of our 15 freshmen who've joined us. Thank you for coming down here today. I was going to say thank you for coming all the way from that Yorkville area, but I know you work here down here during the day. So, but also another outstanding member of our freshman team, Margot McDermott. Thank you again, Margot. We have 15 new members that have joined the House Republicans this year, and we just signed up a couple within the last month. Representative Tim Butler, who is the former chief of staff for Ray LaHood, and also Rodney Davis is a new member of the House of Representatives. But we also have a new representative by the name of Avery Bourne, 22 years old. She took off, she left first year of law school at Washington University, and I am glad to have her as part of our caucus, Paul, I'll tell you that. So it's great, she's gonna do well. And like all of us who walk into Springfield, no matter what your discipline is and what you've done in your career, you grow into the job. So I am confident that all the new members will grow into their job because they all come from great backgrounds. They're farmers, they're businessmen, lawyers, you name it. But also, I just met Deputy Governor Trey Childress. Thank you, and it's a pleasure meeting you. I'm not quite sure you know what you got yourself into, but you will find out soon enough. But President Preckwinkle, always a pleasure to see you. Mayor Barrett Peterson, great to see you as well. I also want to mention my Democrat friends. I'm going to mention them. You'll hear their names again because I need your votes too, guys, so I will be very polite. Marcus Evans, always pleasure to see you. Representative Ann Williams, pleasure to see you. Representative Ken Durkin, good to see you as well. And just remember the question you asked a year and a half ago, and you remember the response, so we don't want to revisit that, do we? Art Turner, good to see you, part of the leadership team, but also Kelly Burke. And Kelly, did you have a good time in the Southside Irish Parade yesterday? I know it was Christmas all over again, wasn't it? Yeah, they cleaned it up, so they say. But in any event, I truly want to thank you for inviting me back. It is an honor. It is an honor to be here, but it also is an honor to serve in the legislature and to have the confidence of my members in the House Republican Caucus from as far south as Murfreesboro all the way up to Freeport, as far east as far west as the Quad Cities and Metro East, and all the way in the border of Indiana and Danville. It's a great experience. I work with amazing people. Sometimes we are not held in the highest regard, but I will tell you that we work hard. People do their best in Springfield under very challenging circumstances. But it's just, this past year and a half has been like with all of us, except maybe Speaker Madigan, but it's been a learning experience. And and I certainly have learned a lot over the past 2 years. Now, a year and a half ago when I came here, many of you were expressing and congratulating me on this new role, but I think most of you today have coming in and they're extending your condolences. That's a little early, guys, premature. But Governor Edgar just recently said within the last 2 weeks that both Chris Redonio, our Senate Republican leader, and myself have the toughest jobs in Springfield. But I can tell you with complete honesty that I am more excited today than I was when I accepted this position a year and a half ago. And that's because the people of Illinois issued a very strong mandate when they had the wisdom to elect a Republican governor, Bruce Rauner. I got to do this the rest of the lunch? Come on, guys. Somebody wrote in here applause after that. I mean, is there a sign of it? I don't think so. But we know these moments, guys. I mean, come on, we've been here before. Paul, come on. Do you want to raise like a glass? All right, but the first time in a long time, the Republicans do have a seat at the table, and that seat is much bigger. Now, we do have naysayers that have already started their work, and that's part of the business that we're involved in, whether it's in Washington or Springfield. But I think all of us who are down in Springfield, particularly Republicans, and I think and Democrats also understand this as well, because we do have a divided government, a good divided government. But the sun has clearly broken through the clouds that hang over the Capitol, and there is truly a feeling of optimism in Springfield, which we have not seen in a long time. The status quo has just not been working, folks, and I think all of us know that. Let me just give you one example. Shortly after the election, and this is right out of the box, after the election of Governor Rauner, and because of the election of Governor Rauner, Caterpillar, our amazing worldwide manufacturer of heavy equipment material, of engines and equipment, announced that it would remain in Illinois. It would remain in Illinois and in Peoria, despite, I will say this, I believe, a long-standing anti-business climate. And folks, Caterpillar does not make these decisions based on emotion. CEO Doug Oberhelman personally told me that he had been lobbied heavily, significantly, by Governor Rick Perry of Texas, Governor Rick Scott of Florida, to relocate in their states with substantial incentives, taxpayer money from those states. We welcome you. We want you, Caterpillar. But Caterpillar sees better days ahead in Illinois because of Governor Rauner and the leadership that he will bring to the office of governor. And best of all for Caterpillar, they are staying here in Illinois, making $1 billion investment to redo their whole World Corporate Center in Peoria without asking for one penny of state taxpayer incentives. So right there, folks, right, like I said, right out of the box, something as good has happened. The news from Caterpillar is very good for all of us. But what would have happened if we'd have lost Caterpillar? It would have meant the loss of over 3,000 jobs in the Peoria area alone. And to the state of Illinois, now Caterpillar is a $55 billion global construction equipment maker. You guys do the math. If they would have left, what Fortune 500 companies in Illinois would be next, and the one after that? But just remember, a lot of people talk about corporate Illinois. They say some negative things about them, but the fact is they put people to work. They put a lot of people to work in this state. We need to help them. We need to embrace them. And I think our business community should be receiving a hero's welcome every day in this state, as opposed to having targets on their back that they have for the past 12 years. Oh, that's better. All right. Over the past few months, we've had the opportunity to work and to get to know Bruce Rauner a little bit better. Paul, I saw that. What we know from his past life is that he was a tremendously successful, highly successful businessman. But what we are experiencing right now and what we get to know about Bruce Rauner, that he is a very committed chief executive and also a very strong leader. Governor Rauner is doing what he campaigned on. No one should be surprised with his agenda. He is doing exactly what he was saying he was going to do. We heard it all through the campaign. He understands that it's going to take a bipartisan effort to advance and to realize his, I would say, very aggressive and bold agenda, and also to reach those goals. And I tell you what, for those of you who were there for the inauguration of Governor Rauner, he could not have been more loud and clear about problems in Springfield will require a bipartisan fix, and they will. We've heard that rhetoric before, we got to work bipartisan, but the fact is the dynamics of Springfield are so much different right now because we do have this divided government. We have checks and balances. We have, obviously, majorities both in the House and Senate, but the dynamics with having Governor Rauner on the second floor of the Capitol has changed everything in that building, and everyone knows that when you walk down there. You can feel it in the air when you walk into that building, and it's good. But what really impresses me the most about the governor right now is his desire to get to know members of the General Assembly on a very personal basis, and that's from both sides of the aisle. He is constantly meeting with lawmakers, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and folks, that's unprecedented. And I will also say, I've had a good relationship with many governors in the past, but he is without a doubt the most accessible governor that I have worked with in my legislative career. Senate Leader Chris Radonio and I meet with him individually every week, at least once a week. We have a call once a week. We're going to have one this afternoon. I'm not going to give in the dial-in number for you guys because those are still secret. But he is really, truly doing a great job putting in the time and effort to build relationships, to build bridges, to help bring this divide that we've had down there for so many years, because he understands it, and the problems they're not insurmountable, folks, but we can get it done. It's going to take time. Now, last month, the governor presented his budget address, and yes, it was on time. All right, yeah. For the first time in many years, the legislature will be asked to support a budget that is premised on a basic notion. The same notion most of us exercise in our own homes. Most of us, I'll say most of us. That is, spend no more than what you bring in, and not a penny more. Governor Rauner has committed to spending $32 billion in fiscal year 16, which is the estimate of revenues we anticipate to take into the state treasury during that time period. It will be up to the legislature, working together in a bipartisan manner, to determine how to spend these dollars. Not unexpectedly, some are loudly complaining about proposed cuts and reforms, which he gave in his budget address. Again, there should be no surprise with anything he has said. None of this is new. Our appropriation committees will go through their orderly course of business to craft a budget, but it is my hope that the majority party will cooperate with us and the Governor Rauner to craft a final budget where spending matches our revenues, plain and simple. I can tell you that Governor Rauner is fair, and while he's doing the right thing by insisting we limit our spending to $32 billion, the amount of revenue that we expect to come in next year, he is flexible in how we get there. And I've said that time and time again. I got all the calls of individuals said, you can't do this, you can't do that. But the fact is, he's very flexible. He's open to how we make these cuts. We will be sensitive to the people that are in most need. But the fact is, we cannot do what we've done in the past. And that means we have to live within our means. Years and years of overspending have left us with steep and deep structural deficits, massively underfunded pension systems, and billions of dollars in unpaid bills. Many will ask, and many have asked, well, why don't you just raise taxes? Well, let me tell you why that's a bad idea. 4 years ago, the Illinois Democrats, in a lame duck session, which we should just get rid of, period, because there's been nothing that's good ever come out of a lame duck session. The last 2 years, have proposed constitutional amendments to limit and eliminate lame duck sessions in Springfield. Maybe we'll get a hearing from the Rules Committee. So, Paul, if you can perhaps get some influence with the people over in the Rules Committee, I could use your help. But I think it's important that we have a full discussion on that, about what it's done to the state of Illinois. If it's fair to the taxpayers and the people who rely upon Illinois, it just doesn't seem like it's a good idea. I've seen it, and the fact is, there was a time back in the mid-'90s when I started, and yes, there were things that happened in the lame duck session. You look back, and I'm like, that was not a good idea. But, someday maybe Republicans will get the majority back. But the fact is, lame duck sessions are no good. They're no good in Washington. They're no good in Springfield. But 4 years ago, I said that the income tax was ramrodded, and I will say ramrodded, through the legislature, the single largest tax increase on families and employers in state's history. And it was sold to the public on the House floor as a way to pay down the backlog of unpaid bills, reduce unemployment, and a way to solve our structural deficits. Well, we all know how it turned out, folks. In January 2015, the temporary tax expired. Despite $31 additional billion coming in over that period with those tax increases, nothing really changed. Our problems still remain the same. So, ladies and gentlemen, what I'm telling you is that the tax increase did not work. However, we can put Illinois back on path by balancing budgets, true budgets that are balanced, revenues match spending, bringing stability, further stability, and help to our very, very struggling and suffering pension systems, continuing the reforms in our Medicaid systems that Patty Bellock spent her career on, and improving our job climates with a pro-growth agenda, the things that the governor's been talking about. But it won't be easy, but we have to be able to, for the first time in a long time, prove to the people in the state of Illinois that we are going to spend their money in a responsible manner. They need to they need to be ensured that their investment every April is going to be a good investment. The way I see it, we have two choices. Either we begin by adopting the balanced budgets I just talked about that force us to make difficult but responsible decisions, ones that improve the overall health of our state, or we can continue down the path of passing unbalanced budgets that make unrealistic promises And folks, to me, that would be unconscionable. I think somebody heard that word last week, but I want to use that as well. Making those promises in unbalanced budgets is irresponsible. To borrow from a phrase that what's been used in elections over and over again, we can't kick the can down the road. But friends, as I speak to you today, March 16th, 2015, there is simply no can left to kick. Illinois demands honesty in budgeting and spending. I implore the majority party to work in good faith with the governor, Leader Radonio, and myself to pass a budget that lives within our means. You getting the theme here, folks? I think so. We can start off on a good foot by bringing balance to the unbalanced FY15 budget that we're currently operating under, that Governor Rauner inherited on January 12, 2015. We are rapidly approaching the last quarter of FY15. We have a $1.6 billion shortfall. We are very close to the date when our child care program will run out of money. That cannot happen. Court reporters won't get paid. If they don't get paid, lawyers, I guess they won't show up to work. And I guess then we will have to rely upon the honor system in the courtrooms, guys, to find out what transpired in that court hearing or that trial. Sounds like a great idea, doesn't it? Also, if we do not fix this problem very soon, prison guards, the Illinois Department of Correction, will not get paid. And again, if they don't get paid, will they show up? Well, who knows? But if they don't, again, I guess we'll have to rely upon the honor system of the inmates within the Illinois Department of Corrections. I don't think that's a good idea either. But we need to get it done, I think, very soon, possibly this week, no later than next week, to avoid. Those are just a few examples of the concerns that have been brought out, have been much publicized over the past month. But we also need to further avoid any further downgrade of our very fragile credit rating. I believe that we're very close to a resolution on FY15, as I said earlier, and we can put that $1.6 billion issue to bed. I'm not looking to point fingers in the past. We need to move forward and start looking more forward to how we're going to get this stuff done. But we have to get this done very soon, folks, this month. It's very clear that, when people talk about how much they have distrust in Washington and Springfield, it's because the parties just don't get along, and they haven't for such a long time. The voters, when they voted for Governor Rauner, they voted for him to bring change to Illinois, and that means that Republicans and Democrats, whether they like each other or not, are going to have to fix the problems. We have to put the politics aside for a little bit, folks. There's too much at stake. There's way too much at stake I just told you just the examples that we're living with. But I will say that this past year, Leader Radonio and I worked closely with President Cullerton and also Speaker Madigan on some very important issues. Statewide public pension reform, pension bills for the city of Chicago, a road capital program, just to name a few. And one thing I said about a year and a half ago is that I made sure that people know this, that I'm going to work with the Speaker and that my caucus is not going to be the caucus of no. We're going to continue to work with, whether it's Cook County government to get a good pension bill to help them with their criminal justice system, about the problems they have in their jail. Glad to work with you, President Preckwinkle. We'll do it. We'll work in good faith. Glad to do it, and it's responsible. That's what we're going to do. So, folks, I will just say that, somebody said, Jim, you're going to tell some Irish jokes, and I'm like, yeah, let's see. I think somebody mentioned something about the Brookfield Zoo early. I've heard that joke before, but I don't think we're going to go there. Somebody talked to me about something about Irish chili. I don't think we're going to go there either. But I just want to wish all of you a very happy St. Patrick's Day. And I will just say this. For those of you who share in my enthusiasm for change in Springfield, I raise this glass and have one word to say to you. Sláinte. Now, I know it's sláinte because I think a lot of you have probably butchered it over the weekend. It's S-L-A-I-N-T-E, and people sláinte, that kind of stuff. But I watched The Source last night. It was Waking of Ned Devine, and at the end they used sláinte. So I feel very confident by saying sláinte for those, as I said, who share in my enthusiasm for change in Springfield. But for those of you who believe otherwise, I have two words to say to you. Pogue Mahone. And if you don't know what that means, look it up in a dictionary. Anyway, all right, there's your humor, guys. But again, thank you so much for this opportunity. Let me just say this. It's an honor always to serve in the legislature. It's historic. And I've told my colleagues, whenever you get sworn into the House of Representatives or the State Senate or a constitutional officer, it's historic. But the fact is, being sworn in right now is historic during historic times. And we need to make our mark on history and move this state back into the direction, the same state that we knew and loved when we grew up, when we had opportunities, educational opportunities, and employment opportunities that everybody in this room knows about. We need to make sure that this next generation is going to have that same type of opportunity. So it's responsible, it's the right thing for doing, and that's really a question. We have to do it. So thank you so much, and thank you for not asking any questions. I really appreciate that, folks. Thanks a lot, Paul. You know, Paul, you said earlier that it's really interesting that Republicans are now getting, great crowds. I thought you were talking about people really wanted to come see me. He said, no, it's because Bruce Rauner got elected. So thanks for that inspiring confidence that you leveled with me earlier in the day. So thanks, Paul.
Great job. How about a round of applause? If you have a question, whether it's in English or Gaelic, raise your hand up. Thanks, Mush. Showing you bipartisanship right off the bat.
First one, what's the definition of Pogue Mahone? Let's see, that would be kiss.
Easy. You got your bride here, for God's sakes. Representative Ken Duncan, our state needs more revenue. Will you put Republican votes on new revenue? Specifically, what do you propose? Always to start off with an easy one.
Well, Representative Duncan, I think we had a similar question about a year and a half ago, but the point of the matter is that the governor has stated that he does not intend to raise taxes in FY16, that we are going to live within the $32.1 billion revenue projection that we've got back from the governor's office of management and budget. And quite frankly, I've not heard of any discussion about any new revenues being sought from the administration. I don't think anybody in my caucus is asking for new revenues, but Representative Duncan, I think, as I said earlier, 32.1, which goes back to about 3.5, 4 years ago. That's the number that we lived within back at that time. Spending increased dramatically. It's going to be a difficult year, and but the fact is, Republicans will not be supporting any revenue in this next General Assembly, and that includes the governor and also the House and Senate Republicans.
Hey, we have a couple of other questions, some good ones, but the moderator, unassuming as he is, that's a very good answer, or at least your truthful answer. Let me put it another way. Will your House Republicans be able to vote yes on tough budget cutting votes?
We're going to have that fairly soon with FY16. And again, I'm not going to go point fingers of how we got there, but the House Republicans will be supporting cuts to balance out the unbalanced FY15 budget. As I said earlier, we have a 32.1 revenue number in which we are going to work off this year. The governor's made it quite clear that how we get to that 32.1 is up to the four appropriation caucuses, open for negotiation, but we are going to be putting votes on cuts. Make no mistake about that. Now the question is whether the House Democrats, Senate Democrats are going to join us with those cuts to meet that number. I'm hearing all kinds of anecdotal things about that. I think it's premature, but the fact is there will be tough budget cuts, and we are going to work on that. That is the reason why the House Republicans and I think the Senate Republicans have not supported these budgets over the many years, because we thought the spending was too high, or is that they were unbalanced. They were not good. They were, I think, unfair. They were premised on, I think, false expectations, and this past year was one of them. So we'll be ready to vote on tough budget cuts very soon to balance out the unbalanced FY15 budget, which we just got to get done, guys, and also FY16. It could be a long year, folks. I'm not going to, make no mistakes about it. We could be down there for a while. I'm not telling you guys to extend your leases on your apartments through the summer, but you might want to see if you have an option available. But no, we will. We will.
Okay, we have a lot of good questions, and let's try and limit these extended answers.
No, I learned that trick from Jim Egger a long year ago. Yep.
That's right. That's the We don't want to go back there. Yes, I was part of that. All right. Neil Nason. Thanks for phonetically spelling it. It's a very good question. He's from Immunize Chicago. What is holding us back from saving money by combining our general elections and our municipal elections? Good question. Probably a lot of municipal candidates, but that's just my
It's real simple. It's called control of the Rules Committee in the House and the Senate. So I would have no problems combining these elections, but and I'm not. This is not about punting, but this is about the House Democrats and the Senate Democrats who run the chambers, who allow bills to move if they see it's in their best interest. So, but it's really a question of just the control of the chambers. That's it.
Okay, very good question coming up. Quick answer. Abby Pfeiffer, McCormick Foundation. Do you support legislation that requires a civics course to graduate?
Wow. I thought we had that, isn't that right? Sure. Unfunded mandate, I'm not sure, just as long as there's no money attached to it. But I don't know if there's a bill pending out there. It sounds fine. We want our students to know a little bit about government when they leave. That's all good. But look, I'll support something like that if it's revenue neutral on our local governments and our local schools. Because I tell you what, our schools are going to have some problems over the next few years. There's going to be budget cuts. But one of the things that the governor has made perfectly clear that he's going to do everything he can to stop unfunded mandates upon our schools and also our local governments. Now, I think this is fine. It could be an optional. I haven't gotten there. I'll be quite frank with you. But the fact is, if there's a dollar amount that's attached to it that's going to be placed in our schools, I don't think it's the right thing to do at the time.
Oh, well, the moderator disagrees. They should be a civics course. No cut. No. Everything else I agree, but that one is. Mark Weiermiller, sitting on the far right of the order, and by the way, properly sitting indeed. Question on pensions. Do you see Illinois moving towards IRAs or 401ks for a phase out of the current system?
Wow. Boy, I'm surprised we got that one. It's late. All right, guys, the pensions are look, we've all said we want to see what the Supreme Court does. They heard the arguments last week. A lot of people may have watched it. There's two questions before the Supreme Court. If they could do one of two things. The request that was made from the state of Illinois is to kick it back down to the circuit court to have an evidentiary hearing on whether or not the police power authority should be enacted to override the impairment clause of the Illinois Constitution. The circuit court, as you know, stated they never got to a hearing because they said that the impairment clause is absolute. So the question of moving forward towards IRAs and 401ks for a phase out of current systems, it is one thing that the governor is talking about. Getting it through the legislature will not be easy. I want to see exactly what the savings will be at the end of the day if we do something like this for current employees and retirees, because I do believe we still have obligations to people who are in the defined benefit program to ensure that their pensions will be met. I have to study, and I'm not punting, guys, but the fact is I need to see what the long-term and actuarial effects upon the system will be if there's a 401k system that's going to be for Tier 3 employees, new employees that come into the system. Because these systems are based on people, paying them, people who are joining the system, paying into the, whether it's TRS, CSRS, and the other ones. So I don't have an answer on that. But I think, again, at the end of the day, it is a benefit that will continue some type of pension benefit for employees in some form. But right now, I don't want to, I'll be quite honest with you. What we did a year and a half ago with the pension systems was it was very difficult to get there. Do I want to revisit it? No. The Supreme Court may make us revisit it. But the governor has a very bold, and I think he feels very strong that there should be some type of 401k option that's going to be placed for these new employees. But again, cost is what's the cost and how it's going to affect people who are currently in the system, people who are going to be in the system.
Okay, two last questions, a very quick one here. Mike Lieber from Ice Miller. I know where you're sitting, I know. Will you commit to, oh Jesus. I just read them. Will you commit to killing the wasteful, unnecessary Ileana Expressway?
Didn't I used to work together at the same firm? Okay. This thing's not even on the radar. I'll just say that. I don't think the governor is particularly, is looking to do anything with Ileana right now. Like I've heard some people have made the argument because of the truck traffic, you've got the intermodal in Will County, that there needs to be something that opens up, but you know, this is kind of a loaded question, but I will just say that it's not on the radar, so. Okay.
Last question, I'm sure you're happy about it, Jim. Here we are. Harvind Singh from, did I say that right? Singh Associates, kind of the same genre. Can you speak on infrastructure, transportation budget? Is the gas tax still off the table?
Well, I think what you have to realize that under the current condition that we have in the state of Illinois, that nothing's off the table, everything's on the table. Infrastructure is something that this governor feels very strong about. He realized you need to make an investment into roads, bridges, railways, all the things that go along with it. Good jobs are provided by that. I'm not sure if we're there with a capital program, but you know, again, we have to find a revenue source to be able to pay this, and we also need to maintain, to a certain extent, what we have within our road fund. So, but I'm not going to mislead you. Everything's on the table, folks, because we have some difficult decisions to make on balancing out FY15. There will be cuts that are in FY15, and what's left in FY16, and how we are able to replenish any funds that could be subject to sweeps within the next 2 weeks is a matter for the legislature to consider. There are working groups right now that are discussing all types of alternatives to gas tax and how we can keep and have a more reasonable way to ensure that the road fund is going to stay healthy. And we'll get a report back from them in the next month and a half. But I don't have a great answer for you. I'm sorry. But just assume that everything's on the table.
How about a round of applause for our... We got